Vinod Matkar, Rafiq and Pradhan, 3 men bound by loyalty, torn by betrayal, and hunted across continents. From the crowded lanes of Mumbai to the streets of New York, their rise, revenge, and ultimate downfall will shock you at every turn. Vinod Matkar's life began in a crowded corner of Dharavi, where every sound carried a story of struggle. The narrow lanes were filled with chaos, yet Vinod moved through them like he belonged to the shadows. His childhood had no softness. He grew up watching fights over food, seeing families break under debt, and learning that rules only worked for those who had power. For a boy like him, survival meant learning quickly and trusting no one. He worked odd jobs from a young age, sometimes selling scrap, sometimes carrying illegal parcels without asking questions. Each job taught him how the streets operated, how people spoke without words, and how fear controlled every decision. Vinod always carried an unusual calmness. Even as a boy, he had eyes that observed everything. He noticed who controlled the money, who protected whom, and which men disappeared after causing trouble. What fascinated him most was how power moved secretly. In Dharavi, real authority didn't belong to those who looked rich, but to those whose names were whispered during arguments. Vinod understood early that strength was not loud, it was silent, smart, and often invisible. By the age of 17, he had already stepped into the world adults feared. He became known for completing dangerous tasks with precision. Whether it was delivering small packages at odd hours or collecting money from stubborn shopkeepers, Vinod never stepped back. He didn't look for trouble, but trouble found him easily, and he learned to handle it without breaking. Slowly, his reputation began to grow among small-time hustlers who needed someone reliable. Vinod's rise began quietly, driven not by greed, but by a hunger to escape the life he had been born into. It was during a late-night job that his path changed forever. A local gang leader, Shyam Naikar, observed him outrun 2 thieves who tried to steal a shipment. Instead of fear, Vinod showed a strange confidence that impressed Shyam. The next day, Vinod received a message calling him for work. Shyam offered him tasks that were riskier but paid better. This was Vinod's entry into the real underworld, a place where loyalty was temporary and success attracted enemies faster than friends. He began working on high-pressure assignments, learning how to stay invisible when needed and how to stand firm when threatened. Each job pulled him deeper into crime. Vinod discovered hidden warehouses, smuggling routes, and the complicated networks that connected rich businessmen to street criminals. He never spoke much, but his silence made him more intimidating. People began noticing him, and soon, even senior members in Shyam's circle saw potential in the quiet boy from Dharavi. Money started flowing faster than Vinod expected. With money came respect, but also jealousy. Older members who had been loyal to Shyam for years felt threatened by Vinod's quick rise. He sensed the tension, but stayed focused. He believed progress depended on speed and precision, not on pleasing everyone. As months passed, Vinod became the most trusted man for risky jobs, and the underworld began whispering his name more often. Little did he know that these whispers were the first steps toward a dangerous journey that would one day push him beyond Mumbai's borders. Vinod's reputation inside Shyam Naikar's gang grew faster than anyone expected. He proved himself in situations that would normally take years to face. His willingness to take on dangerous tasks made him valuable, but what set him apart was the way he handled pressure. While others panicked or hesitated, Vinod thought clearly, moved precisely, and completed his work without unnecessary violence. This calm efficiency made him the preferred choice for missions that required both courage and intelligence. As he continued to succeed, his confidence deepened, and he slowly began to understand how power in the underworld truly shifted. Never directly, but always through careful moves. His first major turning point came when the gang received information about a rival smuggler transporting illegal goods through a hidden channel near the docks. The job required swift action and no mistakes. Many members wanted to avoid involvement because the rival group was known for brutality. Vinod volunteered without hesitation. When the night arrived, he approached the dock with a plan in his mind. He studied the movement of the guards, used the darkness to his advantage, and intercepted the shipment with precision. The rival smuggler tried to retaliate, but Vinod neutralized the threat so effectively that whispers of his skills spread across the port overnight. This single act lifted Vinod from being just another recruit to becoming a key player in the gang. Shyam rewarded him generously and began trusting him with sensitive tasks. Vinod learned more about the gang's financial networks, suppliers, and hidden safe houses. With every new responsibility, he gained deeper insight into how the criminal world controlled money, influence, and fear. His ability to stay unnoticed yet effective made him even more dangerous than the loud, arduous members of the gang. During this time, Vinod started forming bonds with a few individuals who shared his work ethic and ambition. Rafiq D'Souza, a fast thinker with a talent for logistics, became his right hand. Samir Kolakar, an expert driver who could escape any situation, joined them soon after. Later, Joel Pradhan, a man with a reputation for handling difficult tasks without hesitation, completed the small crew. Together they became a strong team within the larger gang, completing assignments with a level of efficiency that irritated older members. Their unity and success planted seeds of silent conflict. Some longtime gang members felt overshadowed by Vinod's growing influence. They believed loyalty to Shyam should matter more than results. But Shyam valued progress above tradition. This imbalance created an invisible wall between Vinod's team and the rest of the gang. Vinod noticed the tension but ignored it, focusing only on his work. He believed results would protect him, unaware that the underworld rarely rewarded rising stars without consequences. As the months passed, Vinod's small crew outperformed everyone else. They expanded the gang's operations into new smuggling routes, increased profits, and managed risks better than anyone expected. People started comparing Vinod to Shyam himself, calling him the future face of the organization. These whispers reached Shyam too, and though he publicly praised Vinod, he privately feared how fast the young man was climbing. Unknowingly, Vinod had stepped into a dangerous position, one where success attracted admiration from some, but resentment and envy from many. This silent shift marked the beginning of conflicts that would soon reshape his entire life. Vinod's rise continued, but with every step forward, new shadows formed behind him. As he moved deeper into high-level operations, the risks changed. Small fights and street-level conflicts were replaced by complex smuggling routes, hidden partnerships, and dangerous alliances with people who lived far beyond Mumbai's slums. The world he had entered rewarded silence and precision, but punished even the smallest mistake. Vinod felt the pressure increasing, but he also felt his confidence growing. He believed he understood the game, unaware that someone close to him had already started playing against him. With Shyam's approval, Vinod began handling gold shipments, counterfeit currency exchanges, and high-value extortion targets. These operations required a level of secrecy that only a few trusted individuals could maintain. Vinod trusted his crew, Rafiq, Samir and Joel, with every detail. They worked together like a well-coordinated machine, each knowing exactly what to do without being told. Their success boosted the gang's income, making them the most important unit under Shyam's control. But while profits grew, so did jealousy from other members who felt ignored and replaced. It was during one of these operations, late at night near a storage facility on the outskirts of Mumbai, that Vinod first sensed danger. He was overseeing a movement of illegal goods when a sudden attack broke out. The shooters were skilled and confident, not random street criminals. They fired with precision, forcing Vinod and his team to take cover. The attackers disappeared as quickly as they came, leaving behind only confusion and questions. Vinod survived without injury, but the event left a mark on his mind. He replayed the scene repeatedly, trying to understand who could plan such a perfect hit. The gang blamed rivals, suggesting it was another criminal group trying to disrupt their operations. But Vinod didn't fully believe that. The attack was too clean, too timing perfect. It felt like someone who knew their routines had orchestrated it. Someone who knew when Vinod would be alone, when the guards would be fewer, and where the blind spots were. That type of information could only come from the inside. Vinod began watching his crew more carefully. Rafiq seemed normal, focused on planning and keeping accounts. Samir stayed loyal, always ready with his vehicle and escape routes. Joel, however, appeared different. He had become unusually quiet, avoiding long conversations, often leaving early for errands that didn't exist before. Though Joel had always been unpredictable, something in his behavior felt off. Vinod wanted to confront him but knew that acting without proof could break the team completely. Instead, he chose to observe silently. Meanwhile, the rivalry among gang members intensified. Older operatives whispered that Vinod was becoming too powerful, too fast. They questioned his loyalty and claimed he was building his own empire within Shyam's network. These rumors spread quickly. Shyam, though outwardly supportive, began limiting Vinod's access to certain intel. The atmosphere grew tense, and Vinod could feel the shift. Success had brought him fame, but fame had brought him enemies. The attack near the warehouse was only the beginning. Vinod didn't know it yet, but forces inside and outside the gang had started moving against him. The silent threat that now followed him was not just a rival from the streets but someone he once trusted, someone who understood his weaknesses better than any enemy ever could. The tension in Mumbai's underworld reached a point where Vinod could no longer trust the ground beneath his feet. Police pressure increased daily. Gangs fought for control of smuggling lanes, and his own crew faced quiet fractures that he sensed but couldn't fully identify. The attack near the warehouse had already shaken him, but what followed changed everything. A major crackdown began after authorities intercepted a coded communication involving Shyam's network. Raids swept across the city, targeting warehouses, hideouts, and anyone linked to illegal trade. This time, the police were not acting on guesswork. They had precise information. Someone had leaked secrets that only a few trusted men knew. Shyam Naikar went underground, forcing everyone in the gang to scatter. With the city burning under police sirens, Vinod realized staying in Mumbai was no longer an option. He suspected the traitor had planned more than just one attack. His name was now on a list circulated within the crime branch, and officers were actively searching for him. If he stayed, he would either end up dead or behind bars for life. Shyam managed to send a secret message, advising Vinod to disappear until the heat cooled down. That message came at a perfect time, but Vinod wondered if Shyam truly wanted to help him or simply remove a rising threat from his path. Using a network of forgers he had helped years ago, Vinod obtained new documents, fake passport, new identity, and a temporary address in the United States. The forgers worked overnight, aware that even a small detail could expose him at immigration. He brought only 2 people with him, Rafiq D'Souza and Samir Kolakar. Joel stayed behind, claiming he had unfinished business in Mumbai, though Vinod sensed a deeper motive. Joel's decision bothered him, but he chose not to force the issue. Escaping quickly mattered more than settling doubts. The journey out of India was filled with tension. Vinod moved like a ghost through the airport, avoiding eye contact and keeping his head low. Every announcement and uniformed officer made his heartbeat louder, but luck stayed with him, and by the time dawn broke, Vinod was on a flight heading to New York via Dubai. The moment the plane lifted off, he felt a strange mix of relief and fear. He had escaped, but he had no idea what waited for him on the other side of the world. Landing in the United States felt like stepping into a different universe. Clean roads, tall buildings, fast cars, and people moving with confidence. Vinod rarely saw in Mumbai's slums. For the first few months, he lived quietly under his new identity. He worked in Indian-owned grocery stores, gas stations, and small delivery services, trying to blend into the immigrant population. Rafiq handled paperwork and contacts, while Samir focused on transportation jobs. They worked long hours, often sharing cramped rooms and cheap meals. Vinod pretended to live a normal life, but deep inside he felt the familiar pull of ambition. America offered more than safety, it offered opportunity. The black market here operated differently, less violent but highly profitable. Illegal medicine distribution, identity fraud, stolen electronics, and underground gambling rings formed a network waiting for someone sharp to take control. Vinod understood the system quickly. He began rebuilding, one small connection at a time. Soon he found people hungry for money and willing to bend rules. With his experience he formed new routes and created a small but steady stream of income. However, the peace he found was fragile. Mumbai still followed him. The betrayal, the attack, the missing pieces he never solved. And as he grew in America, the shadows of his past moved silently around him. Someone from Mumbai had started tracking his new life, waiting for the right moment to strike, proving that escape only changes the location, not the enemies. Vinod's new life in America grew faster than he expected. What began as small side jobs soon turned into a steady underground business. He understood the needs of immigrant neighborhoods, the weaknesses in the system, and the growing demand for illegal services that people were willing to pay for quietly. Every week he discovered new gaps in the market: fake IDs for undocumented workers, stolen electronics for small shop owners, and discounted medicines smuggled from overseas. The United States had its own version of a black market, hidden behind bright streets and strict laws, and Vinod knew exactly how to navigate through it. Rafiq became the center of the operations. His smart planning and calm personality made him the perfect person to handle accounts, negotiate prices, and deal with suppliers. He had a talent for convincing others without raising suspicion. People trusted him easily, and Vinod believed Rafiq was loyal to the core. Samir handled transportation, often driving long distances to deliver illegal goods across states. His ability to stay alert on the road, avoid checkpoints, and react quickly made him essential. Together, the three created a small but strong criminal network. As the money increased, Vinod decided to expand. He rented storage units, purchased small delivery vans, and created new contacts who supplied him with stolen credit card data and counterfeit documents. But growth brought complications. New faces entered their circle, some trustworthy, some dangerous. Vinod observed them carefully, aware that one wrong partnership could expose everything they had built. Even with his precautions, cracks began to appear slowly, invisible at first, but noticeable to someone who paid attention. The first sign came when Rafiq started behaving differently. He attended meetings without informing Vinod, returned late without explanations, and kept separate accounts that he claimed were for experimental side deal. Vinod didn't confront him immediately. He wanted to first understand what Rafiq was hiding. At night, Vinod reviewed documents, checked storage units, and quietly followed money trail. Every clue pointed toward one truth: Rafiq was running a parallel business using Vinod's network and contacts. The second shock came when Vinod discovered that Rafiq had recently been in contact with someone from Mumbai. The communication was encrypted, but Vinod recognized the pattern. It matched the same type used by their old network back home. After days of searching, Vinod found the name Joel Pradhan, the same Joel who had stayed behind in Mumbai during their escape, the same Joel who had acted strangely in the months before the police crackdown. Suddenly, the puzzle pieces he ignored earlier began forming a clear picture. Vinod realized that Joel never stayed back in Mumbai for personal reasons. He stayed because he had already switched sides. He had helped orchestrate the attack near the warehouse. He had provided inside information to police and rival groups. And now, he was working with Rafiq in America. The betrayal went deeper than Vinod expected. Rafiq had not only contacted Joel but also shared details about shipments' locations and schedules. Vinod now understood why some deliveries had gone missing and why a few clients had mysteriously backed out of deals. Rafiq had been slowly building his own power from within, using Vinod's trust as a shield. Vinod did not react immediately. He stayed silent, letting Rafiq believe his secret was safe. But inside, a storm was growing, different from the rage he felt in Mumbai. This betrayal was personal. It came from someone who slept in the same house, ate the same food, and shared the same escape route. Vinod understood now that enemies in a new land were not strangers. They were the ones he brought with him. The seed of betrayal had fully grown, and Vinod knew that what was coming next would no longer be just business. It would be survival. The uneasy silence between Vinod and Rafiq continued, but beneath that silence a dangerous storm was building. Vinod tried to maintain the routine of their operations, pretending nothing had changed, yet every movement around him felt suspicious. He watched his crew closely, paid attention to the smallest details, and waited for the moment when Rafiq would reveal his next move. That moment arrived sooner than expected, and it arrived violently. One evening, Vinod received a panicked call from one of his temporary workers, who helped maintain a small storage unit in New York. The worker claimed that unmarked vehicles had surrounded the building and federal agents were storming inside. Vinod didn't need further confirmation. Someone had tipped off the authorities. The storage unit contained counterfeit documents, electronics and cash. Losing it was a blow, but the bigger threat was exposure. Vinod's name was connected to the papers stored in. It was a direct attack, precisely targeted. The raid wasn't random. The agents knew exactly where to go and what to seize. Vinod sensed Rafiq's handwriting all over it. Only Rafiq had access to those files, and only Rafiq had recently been in mysterious meetings and late-night calls. Vinod immediately called Samir and asked him to leave their apartment, knowing that if federal agents were acting on information, they would soon come looking for the rest of the operation. Samir managed to escape through a back exit just minutes before a surveillance car appeared on the street. While Vinod and Samir went off the radar, Rafiq disappeared entirely. His phone was off, his apartment had been emptied, and none of the workers had seen him since morning. It became clear that Rafiq had been planning this betrayal for months. He had built a secret network with Joel's support, using Vinod's contacts and resources. The raid was their first move to weaken Vinod and take over the entire operation. 3 days later, the betrayal sharpened further. Samir failed to return to their temporary hideout. Vinod tried calling repeatedly, but every attempt went straight to voicemail. Hours passed, and the pressure grew unbearable. Finally, a message arrived from an unknown number, just one sentence stating that Samir had been taken. No threats, no demands, no instructions. It was simply a message to let Vinod know he had lost another ally. Vinod understood instantly that Rafiq's plan was to break him piece by piece, first by destroying his business, then by isolating him from his crew. The kidnapping changed everything. Vinod had faced enemies before, but this time the danger was personal. Samir was not just a driver or helper. He was loyal from day one. Someone who risked his life during the Mumbai escape. Learning that he was held hostage ignited a cold fury inside Vinod, but he forced himself to stay calm. Anger clouded judgment, and Vinod needed clarity more than anything else. He began tracking Rafiq's movements through old contacts and shadows of information. Small clues emerged. An abandoned auto garage in Queens, unusual late-night deliveries, and crates marked under fake shipping companies. All of these pointed toward Rafiq's new base of operations. Vinod spent nights watching the area, mapping guard routes and analyzing patterns. He noticed men coming and going, all armed and unfamiliar. The place was heavily fortified, which meant Rafiq had grown far stronger than Vinod anticipated. Vinod understood he had little time. Once Rafiq consolidated power, he would eliminate anyone who posed a threat, including Samir. Vinod planned carefully, choosing a night when rain and wind would reduce visibility. As the storm approached, he prepared for the confrontation that could either rescue his friend or end his own life. All the years of surviving in Mumbai's underworld had led to this moment, but this time the battle wasn't for money, reputation, or territory. It was for loyalty, revenge, and the last remaining bond he valued. The storm over New York marked the beginning of a clash that would shake the underground world across 2 continents. Vinod stepped into the night, ready to face the man who had once been like a brother, now turned into a deadly enemy. The stormy night over Queens became the cover Vinod needed, but it also carried a strange sense of fate, as if everything in his life had led him to this moment. With every step he took toward the abandoned auto garage, memories of Mumbai flashed through his mind. The narrow lanes of Dharavi, the early jobs that shaped him, the moments of loyalty he trusted blindly, and the betrayals that pushed him across continents. Now, standing in front of the place where his friend was held captive, all those memories sharpened into a single purpose. He had to end what Rafiq had started. The building was old, rusted, and surrounded by broken cars that served as a natural barrier. Vinod hid behind them, watching the guards move with disciplined coordination. They were not random street thugs. They were trained, organized, and alert. That meant Rafiq had built a serious operation in a very short time. Vinod observed their routine, noticing when they stepped away from their posts to smoke, when they received deliveries, and which doors remained unlocked for convenience. His mind worked like a machine, mapping every weakness in the layout. After hours of silent observation, Vinod moved. He slipped through a gap in the fence, using the roaring thunder to mask the metallic sound. The yard was filled with puddles and debris, and each step required careful control. Lightning flashed occasionally, revealing silhouettes of guards, and Vinod timed his movements so that each shift of light worked in his favor. He moved with the same precision he once used in Mumbai docks during smuggling runs, relying on instincts sharpened by years of survival. Inside the garage, the air smelled of oil, dust, and dampness. Containers were stacked in rows, some filled with electronics, others empty. Vinod navigated through them until he found a smaller room secured with a heavy lock. He recognized Sameer's jacket on the floor, through the small gap under the door. Relief washed through him. Sameer was alive, but the locked door meant guards were nearby. Vinod needed speed and silence. He took out a piece of metal from a dismantled engine and forced it into the lock. The mechanism clicked after a long minute, and he slipped inside. Sameer lay tied to a chair, exhausted but breathing. His eyes widened with relief when he recognized Vinod's silhouette. But Vinod had no time for comfort. He untied the ropes quickly and signaled for silence. Sameer nodded, understanding the danger instantly. Together, they prepared to escape, but fate had other plans. As they stepped toward the exit, footsteps echoed from the front of the garage. Rafiq appeared, flanked two guards. His expression carried confidence, as if he had predicted Vinod's every move. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His presence alone was a declaration of war. The guards raised their weapons, and Vinod reacted instantly, dragging Sameer behind a stack of crates. Bullets tore through the metal around them, creating sparks and sharp sounds that blended with the storm outside. Vinod counterattacked, using shadows as his shield. He moved fast, creating confusion, knocking out one guard with a sudden strike and forcing the other to step back. Rafiq retreated slightly, clearly not expecting Vinod's level of control. The confrontation turned into a brutal chase through the garage, with both sides using the cluttered space to their advantage. Sameer, still weak but determined, joined the fight, distracting one of the attackers long enough for Vinod to overpower him. The clash ended when Vinod cornered Rafiq near a stack of crates filled with stolen phones. The rainwater dripping from the broken roof made the floor slippery. Rafiq attempted to escape, but his foot slipped, and Vinod seized the moment. The struggle was fierce and emotional. Two men who once shared dreams now fighting for survival. In the end, Vinod's resolve proved stronger. Rafiq fell, injured and defeated, unable to continue. Instead of finishing him immediately, Vinod stepped back. The betrayal, the lies, the destroyed trust, all of it weighed heavily on him. But the fight wasn't over yet. Sirens in the distance grew louder. Someone must have informed the authorities. Vinod realized the operation had drawn more attention than expected. He and Sameer had only minutes to escape before law enforcement arrived. With one last look at the fallen traitor, Vinod made his choice. He pulled Sameer up, guiding him through a side exit, just as the garage lights flickered and police vehicles approached. The night ended not with victory, but with escape, a temporary survival in a war that was far from over. The storm outside raged harder than before, matching the storm inside Vinod's mind. He had saved Samir, defeated Rafiq, and dismantled part of the threat. But the actual mastermind, Joel Pradhan, was still out there, planning his next move. The fight that started in Mumbai had followed him across oceans, and now the final confrontation awaited him somewhere in the shadows of America. The final stage of Adadish Borkar's plan unfolded quietly, without any rush or noise. After months of moving from one temporary place to another, he finally reached a small, isolated cabin deep inside the California forest. The wooden structure stood alone, surrounded by tall pine trees that blocked sunlight and hid everything from passing eyes. For the first time since escaping Mumbai, Adadish felt a strange sense of calm. He believed he had outsmarted everyone, crossed every border, and vanished into a world where no one could find him. He carried a new identity, new documents, and a new phone that was never used near cities. Everything about his life was controlled and cautious, but he did not know that his biggest mistake had already betrayed him. Months earlier, when he first arrived in the United States, he had transferred a small amount of digital money to a friend in Florida. He thought it was untraceable, but federal investigators had connected that transaction to a missing person case back in India. From there they followed every step, every rented room, every city camera he passed. What Adadish believed was a perfect escape was, in reality, a slow trail leading straight to him. By the time he reached the forest cabin, a surveillance team had already been monitoring the area for several days. Inside the cabin, Adadish felt safe. He spent his days fixing small tools, writing in an old notebook, and studying maps of places where he planned to start a new life under yet another identity. He planned to move to Mexico next, then disappear deeper into South America. He was confident that nobody could predict his next move. But outside, hidden among the trees, agents watched every light he turned on, every shadow passing behind the window, every sound of footsteps on the wooden floor. On the night everything changed. Adadish sensed something different. The forest air felt heavier, and there was no wind moving through the trees. The usual silence seemed too silent. He stepped outside, carefully scanning the darkness, unsure if his mind was imagining danger or if something real was approaching. He walked a few steps away from the cabin and looked toward the narrow trail he used to fetch water. His instincts warned him to go back inside, but he stayed still, listening. A faint crack from a broken branch echoed somewhere behind him, followed by a second, softer sound. Adadish froze. It was no animal. Before he could react, bright lights burst through the trees. The forest floor lit up as armed officers surrounded him from all directions. Adadish tried to run, but the ground was uneven, and he stumbled before taking even 2 steps. Officers closed in, blocking every escape. The months of running, hiding, and planning ended in seconds. As he was taken into custody, the forest returned to silence. The cabin stood untouched, holding the last traces of his forgotten life. Adadish realized that the world he tried to escape had finally caught him. Not with force, but with patience. His journey from Mumbai's underworld to America's wilderness ended not with violence, but with quiet inevitability, proving that no one truly escapes the consequences of their past.